Gretel, you've had a lot of experience with health overseas with women and also in Australia. What do you think? Do you think there's a barrier that women have with dealing with their health themselves, taking ownership of that? I mean,
well, the major issues that I have encountered while travelling, doing documentaries and whatever, are really quite different to here. A lot of them have to do with society's disrespect for women. As you heard, we did a documentary in Africa for AIDS orphans. So we came across many children who were raising their siblings. But in many communities there was the philosophy amongst some, the superstition that you could cure AIDS, a man could cure his own AIDS by sleeping with a virgin. I also hold the Catholic Church, excuse me, but profoundly responsible for the deaths in much of the world. Many of whom are men, but for not sanctioning the use of condoms, the devastation that has been wreaked in communities that need a faith system simply to get up and find purpose in every day has just been devastating, as I said. As I say, the disrespect for women in Bangladesh, for example, women who have their period, of course, many poor women don't have access to tampons or pads, and many religions don't actually like women to use tampons anyway, but they're not accessible. So rags are used, but for a lot of the women to simply dry the rags, where are you going to do that? To expose something so profoundly personal, men would see that. So the women reuse them when they're not completely dry, which of course, as you would know, Karen, leads to terrible health problems. In Bangladesh also I came across women in a particular, a lot of women staying in a home who had all been, whose lives had been destroyed with acid burnings. Once again, this was due to the fact that the women's lives weren't respected. Some of them were little kids, often because they wouldn't agree to be married to a man that it had been organised that they should marry, or it might be a husband who was jealous of some sort of financial independence that the woman had earned, and because a lot of the mums sleep with their children close together, when acid is poured over a sleeping mother, of course it pours over the children as well. And I have to tell you, it's a burn that it eats not only the skin but the bone. So when you talk to these women, there is not a face there. Now this is due to lack of respect for women. And of course that means there's lack of support for women in these sort of circumstances. But when I was in Iraq also, and I don't know, people crap on, but one bloke was telling me what the compensation was in Iraq if one of the military vehicles hit a man, and he mentioned some sort of figure, hit a donkey, for example, hit a goat, or hit a woman, and the lowest compensation you would ever receive was if the woman in your family was the victim of some sort of accident. So when I talk about international health, it's such a world away from here, because it is here. I think the problem is that a lot of women, and this is another issue, but our problems can come from ourselves because we do have access to the information and the support, but there it's way, way behind us.
And I mean, what can we do as women? We have our issues at home, but what can we do to become more aware or become part of change in the greater world, in your opinion?
Well, I think there are an enormous number of commentators in our media who have commentated on the war and they've never been there, commentate on developing countries. Is commentate even a word? It's so late I don't know whether it is. Is it? Or should I finish on comment? Probably leave the 8 out. I think people are talking about things they know nothing about. They haven't felt it. They haven't seen it. I remember talking to a little girl in Africa, and her mother had died, and people think, well, your mum dies, your family will take you on. I said, what do you miss? what a dumb question. And she barely spoke any English, of course, and she said, I miss my mother loving me. And I think it's that also. We hear these statistics, stupid statistics like live on less than $1 a day. What's that even mean? Hear these massive, 22 million people have died of AIDS or whatever it is. But it's waking up without hope, without food. I came across a woman, she'd had 11 children, 8 of them had died of AIDS. And she would have been in her 70s and she was raising all of their children herself in a hut. The only food they had was mealy. And the eldest boy in that family, when she died, would be responsible for every one of them. And the eldest boy was the same age as my son. And I said to him, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he said, I want to be a doctor. And the chance of that is nothing. It's nothing. There's no hope. But that was the only thing that helped him
get through
progress
the day.
through the day.
Yeah. It's very sobering.